Welcome to the CEO's Laundry, the first coaching podcast designed for leading CEOs. You see, CEOs face personal and professional issues just like you and me. But with a high-level position comes high-level questioning and duties. As a result, they can feel alone, misunderstood, confused, or overwhelmed. But these high-level responsibilities can also be a source of inspiration for them to look for ways to simplify their lives and optimize their results for the long run. That's why, instead of focusing on their achievements and success stories, each episode is a discussion focused on their current challenges and what lies ahead. I help them clear their minds. This way, they make room for fresh insight to refocus on themselves, give their daily lives a new boost, and strengthen their impact on the world. Be at the forefront of a podcast that reveals the reality of a human being behind the title of CEO. In this episode, I'm with Rashik, the CEO of Onethread in Bangladesh. And we get to discuss a bunch of stuff together, such as clarity and confidence, imagination, creativity. And we finish on exercises and challenges that I give him to work on his subconscious mind and to use his subconscious mind and imagination as a tool to succeed. I hope you enjoy this episode and I hope you get a lot of benefits from it, as well as an entrepreneur, leader, or CEO. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the CEO's Laundry. I'm glad that you're watching on YouTube this episode or listening to it on your podcast platform. Today, I'm with Rashik. Rashik, thank you very much for being here today. I'll let you introduce yourself, what you do, your business, and then we will start from there. I will ask you a few things about your challenges. I like to do that. I like to show people that there is no prep questions. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. That's the magic of coaching.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for having me on this podcast as well. So I'm Rashik. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm the CEO of Onethread. Onethread is a simpler, more affordable project management solution. So the idea behind it is pretty simple: is that there are a lot of solutions that are out there in the market, but most solutions are not designed by our low tech or even for our low tech users. So we wanted to bring something that is a lot more easier for our users to use and put it at a price point that is also affordable for markets like ours as well. So this is the domain that we are working in. We have launched a beta version. Now we are going for a full launch, I think like sometime next month or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Briefly, that is what we're doing.
So let's start from there. How would you like to feel at the end of this conversation together?
That's pretty tough. I would say, if anything, if I have more clarity, if that is the case, I think that probably is the best.
Okay, clarity then. There are two things that people are chasing. It's clarity and confidence most of the time. And there is a paradox with clarity and confidence, because those are results. You gain clarity by doing, you gain confidence by doing. It's actually when you look back and you look at what you've done, then you can have a better understanding of the pathway in front of you. And it's the same with confidence. It's when you look back and you look at what you've done, instead of being in your trap in your thinking, but you actually look at what you've done, then you're like, it's not as bad. And then you gain the confidence because you've done things, you've done stuff. You're brilliant, you're smart, you're bright enough to make decisions. That's something that I understand from what you say. So you have a brilliant mind. And the fact that you do a lot of different things at the same time prove that. even if they are not in your zone of genius, even if you don't like them 100%, maybe there are some things that you hate 100%, but you're still doing them. You're in the founding phase stage of the business, and I believe that most business founders, startup founders will agree on that, is that you go through this shitty time at the beginning. So I want to acknowledge you for what you're going through right now, because it's very challenging, and I hear that you have faith. I hear that in your voice, in the way you talk. It's not like I'm doing something, but I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't hear that. I hear that I'm doing stuff, and I believe in what I'm doing. If you could hire someone tomorrow, or imagine that someone reach out to you tomorrow because they want to work with you, and this person is just like magical, you know that this person will solve 50% of your problems. Who would be that person?
The profile is pretty simple. It's basically people who have like an experience in actually selling products online. So I was talking to this founder the other day. Like, I really liked his experience. Like, he was telling me that I have sold everything, and I really really interested. Like, they work in advertising now, but like he was telling me that I have sold everything from like adult products to everything, like you can imagine, over on internet. Because that really like gives me a lot of confidence that regardless of the product, you have the ability to like market it in a way that you can still like capture different markets with different products. So I would say like someone like that, someone like who have understanding of content marketing a lot more compared to me, SEO, email marketing, those sort of stuff. Sounds very generic, but I think like as I said, I don't really have a very imaginary mind. I'm not very artsy type of guy. Can't really do very good designs as well. So that is one of my like major drawbacks, I would say.
Okay. I think there is it's a topic that is very interesting, imagination.
Yeah.
Let's focus on that,
Sure.
because this is typically an area of growth for you here, because there is no difference, there is no relation in between like dreaming bold, dreaming big, dreaming impossible, and having a rational mind. Because as a human being, you have both. You have both this power of imagination and creativity. Like, you're starting a business, you're here trying to beat the odds, and starting a business out of nowhere, like just out of your imagination. That is not rational. So I don't buy I'm not an imaginary person, because everything that you illustrate proves that you're a creative person. I prefer the word creative rather than imaginative. What do you feel when I tell you that? When I tell you that you're a very creative person?
I don't think some people are born with it. I don't really have an artistic sort of mind. I'd say like that is what I was probably going for when it came to like imagination and stuff. But yeah, I agree like to an extent, like yeah, somewhat creativity is obviously there, but not a lot.
Okay. So I'm going to talk to you, but I'm going to talk to the audience at the same time.
Yeah.
So I ask you to listen carefully to what I'm going to say. Because here's the thing. If I would be a bad coach, what I would focus on right now is like, okay, you told me that you need someone who knows how to sell products online. So let's focus on how you can make that happen, etc., etc. I would focus on the problem instead of focusing on you. But as I believe being a good coach, I want to keep the focus on you, because I believe that there is big shift that can happen by shifting something in you. And there would be no point in us having this conversation or other conversations in the future if it would be to focus on something that is not you. I truly differentiate creativity and what we call art. Art in, like musician, people who paint, who draw, etc., etc. That is a form of creativity. But having a business is another form of creativity. Having a relationship, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, that is another, like you create every day your relationship. Like there is art and what we call art, what you understand what I say, the word art, that is a way to be creative. But what is interesting is that you're always creating. Right now you're creating a product, you're creating an impact, you're creating a result, you're creating this conversation today because you talk and I can answer back from what you say. So you create my speech, you create a business, you create solutions, you're creating, you're constantly creating. And one of the challenges that I would give you as a client would be to change, like to give you a challenge for 1 week on self-awareness, and to change the word making and doing by creating for a week, to see how it would feel for you to say, like, I'm creating instead of I'm doing something or I'm making something. And each time you would catch you saying those words, you will shift them by replacing with the word creating. It could be like self-talk to yourself or talk with other people, just to make you realize that you're constantly creating all the time. Another thing that we can explore right now, if you're willing to, is to make you dream bigger. Because it's the paradox of dreams. The more you're going through challenges, the too little you're dreaming. There is that paradox of dreams, that the bigger your dreams, the more simple and the easiest it becomes later on. And that is also for you as a CEO, as a leader, as a team leader. It's because of the visions, because of the dreams that you're going to put out there, that people will want to follow you. What do you have in mind from what I say?
I'm really into psychology to Alex, because I really love the topic. So I was listening to them on a podcast. I forgot what's the name. There's very interesting study that they were mentioning, and that really sort of made me interested quite a bit. Is that they're telling that they a study was done. I forgot it was either on Harvard or Stanford. I forgot the university. So they broke this group of students down into 3 different groups, and what they did is for one, they didn't tell them to imagine anything. So they have a study test coming up. For the other, they told them to think of getting brilliant grades, you're getting A's, A pluses, in your university. And for the third group, they told them to not think of the result, but think of the process. So you would when you are thinking, you're thinking I'm studying, or I'm preparing for. So they tried to, and then all of them studied for more or less the similar sort of hours. They tried to think come into conclusion whether that sort of thinking pattern actually influences your mindset anyway. And what interestingly they found out, like the ones who were thinking about the process were actually more successful, because at the end of the day, the result is not really in your, like that is, at least that was their hypothesis, that the result is not really in your hand. The things that are in your hand is basically the processes that is in place. So like, for them is a study, like, preparing for the test, how you're going to do the test, and those sort of things. So once you think of that more, you're more inclined to be like, more in tune with that. Like more, once you're studying, you're not really thinking of the result, you are still thinking about the studies, and that is at the end of the day, in fact, like, brings you best result. So that conclusion was pretty like interesting, is that I think it was also centered on entrepreneurship, is that like rather than thinking of like, you get this big exit or stuff like that, think of everyday works, or like not necessarily everyday works, like processes that you have to put in place to get there. Think of those a lot more, so that once you're trying to do that, you will be like, more concentrated, more in tune with that. So I've started to like, try and do that, because to be really honest, it's a lot more fun to think of like, I'll have this big successful company and like, big success, rather than thinking like, okay, fine, I'll have to go to the bank and like I'll have to say to the product team. It's a lot more fun to do the first thing, but I'm trying slowly to like, set my mindset, because I think it has some sort of merit to it. I'm not sure like it will probably like drastically change anything, but just wanted to like, share that bit of like an interesting insight that I like recently learned.
I got that. I'm checking on the time. Yeah, I know the study, and that's basically what I work with clients on. It's that what you focus on your mind is what is going to happen, and there is what you consciously focus on and what you subconsciously focus on, and what you subconsciously focus on you don't really know because you're not consciously thinking about it. And you have the same kind of studies where like they made this study 2 times, like asking people to close their eyes and visualize themselves walking out and focusing on the biceps. And they did this study with 3 groups of people over 2.5 months. And so the first group of people had to simply close their eyes and think about anything they wanted. The second group of people had to close their eyes and imagine that their biceps was bigger. So they had to do that 2 hours a day for 2.5 months. Like just imagine that they gain muscles, like it's bigger. And the third group had to close their eyes and imagine that they were walking on their biceps. So they had to do nothing, but they had to close their eyes and imagine that they were doing it, as if their arm was moving, etc. And the result with the third group is the biggest result. And they increased their muscles by 14%, their biceps by 14% in 2.5 months without working out. It's because, and that's one part of what I do with my clients, it's working on that. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imaginary. You can do the same with your goals, imagining that you have already reached your goal. And when you do that, not just one time, but you repeat it over time, your subconscious mind is going to understand that how you did it. And you did it. Because if every day you play the role of the future you, like you won. You won already. You've reached your goal. And every day you say that to your subconscious mind. For example, I don't know, money is something that is usually alive. Like you just imagine that you made $1 million out of your business. And every day you celebrate that. You celebrate that win. Like, my God, you play the same thing over and over every day, the same scenario over and over every day. like I made it, I made a million, I made a million, I made a million. It's like, and you feel the sensation. For your body, it's going to be like you did it for real, because you feel it. How could you feel something that didn't happen? It wouldn't make sense for your subconscious mind. If your subconscious mind feel that you've made a million, then you've made a million, like dot, mic drop. That's the end of the story. And so your subconscious mind is going to change your mind, change your belief, change what you do, change how you think, change how you feel, change how you interact with people, change a lot of stuff based on this new reality that your subconscious mind is living in. And that for your subconscious mind makes perfect sense. It's perfectly rational, because your subconscious mind couldn't understand that. How could you feel something that is not true? And so you can use that trick that is within you to grow. I had a talk last year with someone that I know I already met, but he built I don't know if you know Draper Startup House. So the CEO is Vikram, and Vikram started with, it was not this name before. It was the name of Draper Startup House was Tribe Theory. And I've been to Tribe Theory where I live. I met Vikram there, and what he did is that he wanted to be acquired. He wanted to I don't remember the amount of money, but make $1 million or something like that. And he did that in less than 2 years. He made a list of what he wanted to achieve and the reality he wanted to live in on a piece of paper. And he put that, he scotched that on his wall near his bed. And every morning and every night, he was reading that. And he was feeling the excitement, the satisfaction of this reality that he was consciously not living in, but unconsciously, yes. And bunch of stuff happened in his life that it would have been impossible to plan, because of embodying this reality. This boldness was just shining through him, and that there are those opportunities, the meeting with people, everything that he did was making him jump faster and closer toward his dream. And it's okay if it doesn't make sense, because it's still work. And I believe that there is a great area of growth for you here, to not to believe what I'm saying. I would never ask you to believe me, because I always ask people to believe through their own experience. Make the experience by yourself. Prove to yourself that it's working. Then later you can believe me, but don't believe me in advance. Do it yourself. You will see it works 100% of the time. Then once it will have worked for you, we can talk about belief if you want. Are you up for a challenge that you can do on your own?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You don't have to do it, but if you want to do it, this is what you can do. You take a piece of paper. You write the ideal situation you would like to be in at the end of next year. The one that you wouldn't really feel comfortable sharing with your family and your friends, because it feels maybe too bold. Maybe it's not rational. Maybe it's not logical. But that's it. If that would be your ideal situation by the end of next year, and it makes you smile when you think about it, write it down. And then at the left, or you can do that on two pieces of paper. On one piece of paper, you write down most of your fears or what you think could prevent you from doing it, from making it happen. Like not a list of 100 things, just like 6 to 10 max. Like I don't believe it can happen because it's irrational, for example. And second, I don't think I can make it happen because if I say that out loud, my friends will make fun of me. And third, I don't think it can happen because I don't think my team is the right team for this kind of challenge. And then on the other piece of paper, what you do is that you write the exact opposite of your fears, of your limiting belief. And you write that using the present tense, not the future, but the present tense, as if it was not true. For example, the first one is I'm afraid that I cannot make it happen because it's irrational. You write how you would feel if you have reached your idle goal. Like, I'm super happy, grateful, satisfied, joyful that I've made this goal happen, and that during the whole process, I kept in mind that it was so easy, so simple, so rational, so logical. Thinking of it right now, it's probably the most rational goal I ever had. Like you really stretch yourself to write the opposite of your fear and limiting belief. Like to the point where you feel like that's bullshit. Like this is not me. This is not me at all. I don't think that. And once you have this opposite list with the idle goal at the top, read that 2 times a day. Morning, evening. Take 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening to read it. And I swear that if you do that every day, you commit to doing that, you're going to anchor that in your subconscious mind. And if you do that every day, starting tomorrow, we can have another conversation in 2 or 3 months from now, like let's say February, March. And those bullshit on the right, on the second list, would not sound as bullshit anymore. Because you will have consciously made them part of your new identity. And I swear that you would tell me like, yeah, it makes way more sense. I mean, I understand there's still some stuff that's I don't resonate with it still, but for others, it makes sense. And then from there, the quality of your thought will change. You will think differently. You will consciously change your mind, change your thought. You will catch yourself like, how am I thinking like that? That's not me. It's because your subconscious control the quality of the thought that you have. Even if it doesn't make sense right now, even if it's not rational, it's not logical, even if you don't agree with me, even if you can think that this very simple exercise is bullshit, this is how the subconscious mind works. And the subconscious mind doesn't care at all if you think that it makes sense or not. Like you can think that our planet is flat. The planet doesn't care about what you think. It's still rounded. That's the same way with this process. Your subconscious mind doesn't care about what you think about this, if it's true or not. If you practice that, it will work 100%. It's as sure as the planet is rounded.
Yeah, sounds interesting. I'll give it a try and I'll let you know like how that's working out for me.
Mm. But if I can challenge you on that, don't give it a try. Commit to it. Do it.
I mean,
Yeah. That's not about giving it a try. It's about going in fully. Because if you give it a try, it means that you let the door open for it to fail. So you don't you just try something. But if you commit to it, that change your attitude towards it, that change your behavior, that change your level of intention. So like, I'm going to do it twice a day for the next 3 months, as if my life depends on it. If I miss one, I die. Then you don't try. If you miss one and you die, you will just do it no matter what. You will take those 5 minutes every morning, 5 minutes every evening, because you don't want to die. So try to go toward that direction rather than trying. You will see that it will change the way you do it.
yeah, makes sense.
How do you feel right now? What is your takeaway?
I think like a bit about myself. To be really honest, I think like one of the things that probably we discussed the most is later came down to the and then exercise. I think like the exercise sort of like was a good way to round up the entire conversation, because it was depending upon like creativity and a lot of the like struggles that I go through, and at the end of the day that exercise would probably like bring both of those things together. So yeah, I think like probably the one thing that like if I had to take away from this conversation is that like at the end of the day those problems itself is A, not going to solve themselves, but B, not going away anytime soon. So probably the best way to deal with it is that for me to believe that I can at least like rise above all of those things and reach the sort of like goals, the standards that I wanted to reach anyway at the first place. So I think like that is and I think that's probably a very underestimated or like undervalued like stuff when it comes to like a founder, because at the end of the day when people like find a founder very convincing is because like he or she shows that confidence when they speak, when they do stuff, when they like in everything. And I think that confidence comes with that idea that you believe in everything that you are doing. And although I do that, but I think yeah, at times it becomes a bit too difficult to like even convince myself that this is worth pursuing, and like this is worth going through all this hassle for. But I think like yeah, that is probably my biggest takeaway from this meeting.
Yeah, that's a beautiful takeaway. And it's like, so what we have covered today is a good tool, a good strategy to push yourself toward like the faith of what you're doing, the faith in yourself, in your ability to do it as well. That's beautiful. Thank you very much, Rashik, for showing up today, for having the courage to talk about your changes, to talk about yourself, to have the courage to be challenged, because I challenged you to always refocus on you. And it's like it's not comfortable to be challenged. It's not comfortable to tell ourselves that maybe I have, or maybe I need to change. even if like it's hard, there is always that inner
Yeah.
resistance toward change. So thank you for showing up for this exercise and being willing to go through this resistance that you feel as a human being when it's about change. I like this conversation. If you have one last word, I will let you finish.
Yeah. No, just wanted to thank you for having me here as well, because I think we were supposed to talk anyway. So I'm glad that we have had this chat, and because it's been a very tiresome time with a lot of work as well. We applied to an accelerator, so that is going to go through. That probably mean another added thing on top of all those things that I'm supposed to do. So yeah, it's good to sort of I would say sort of take some time out and actually talk about things that probably doesn't really come to the surface, and always is under the surface. So yeah, it's a good talk, good uh even talking with you all with all those things, because even for myself, and I think for anyone else, it's probably very hard to talk about themselves. I don't think a lot of people really understand it. It's because this is why people struggle to go to therapy, and because it's very hard to open up to someone that you are not really that comfortable with. But yeah, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we have this. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your trust. Thank you without knowing me, you trusted me enough to do this. Though it means a lot to me, honestly, that you did that today. I'm really grateful. I'm really glad. Thank you very much. And yes, one of your challenges to not see that as one more thing that will take some of my time, but to think that as it's an investment of my time that will be a catalyst for my results, because Kevin told me that's how it works. So I promised that if you do it with 100% of your heart, that does the time that you will spend doing it, and like the first exercise, and this time that you will spend like 10 minutes every day, 15 minutes stop every day. In a year from now, you will thank yourself that you've done that, and you will want to do more of that. And you will ask your team to do that as well. So thank you, Rashik.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, we've finished.
It's a
Oh,
good,
go on.
it's a good session for.
How do you
I
feel
like
right
it.
now?
I think I've I have this sense a bit more that at the end of the day, probably should also take some time off to not necessarily time off, but to put in some very dedicated time in terms of personal growth. Not I put in time in is my personal growth. When I say this, is mostly growth in terms of skill set or something like that, but not really regarding any of that. It's just the growth as a person as well. So I think yeah, that is probably I should one thing that I definitely should do going forward.
Okay, but that's good that you realize that, and I hope you will do it for yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rashik. Have a good end of the day, and good week as well.
Okay, man. Take care. Bye bye.